Okay, we're on a roll. We are ready to set up the database, which in this case we're going to be using this thing called Firebase, which is a product from Google. And it has a whole bunch of really cool features. But for cheap people like me, the most important feature is that it's free. When you have a app and you don't want to build a back end of your own, you got this cool little thing called cloud databases these days. And that's what we're going to use. So the next step in our process is to set up Firebase, and we'll do that right now, and then we'll add a few packages so that the two things can talk together, the Firebase database and the Flutter application. So the first things you're going to do is you're going to go to this cool little site called firebase.google.com, and you're going to sign up. I've already signed up, so when you're done, click on Go to Console. And here you go. This is all of your apps. So we are going to create a new one. I've already got a few, obviously, because this isn't my first trip to Firebase. We are going to call it Covacity. Now, I was going to call it Covacity because it's a COVID capacity app. But if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that somebody's already used that name. So I'm going to misspell it. And we're on the internet, so we can misspell anything we want, right? So we just put the name together, click on continue. We're not going to bother with analytics for this particular project, and click on create. And it's going to spin for a few seconds, like most things in life, and it's going to be ready. Come on, baby, you can do it. Oh, we're finishing. And there you go. New project is ready. So we will continue. It'll take us to the project. And now what we have to do is we have to add, in our case, we're going to do both an iOS project, an iOS app to our Covacity project, and an Android one. We can also do web if we want, but that's not going to be the scope of this particular series. Before we get there, I'm going to mention a couple of things you're going to notice. This is officially on what's called the Spark plan. And if we look down at the bottom, we can see what our bill is going to be, which is 0. Now, if you click on upgrade, you'll have to add a credit card, but it will allow you to use a few extra things which could be important in the future. Most importantly, for what I've found, is if you want to do back-end database work using something called Cloud Functions, you're going to need to go pay as you go. But the cool thing about the way Firebase works is you can say, I don't need to pay for this particular project, but I do need to pay for that project, and you can have as many different projects as you want. They say there's a limit on the number of free projects, but I haven't run into it yet. I don't have a bunch, but they say, I think it's like 5 or 10 you can get for free, which if you haven't made money on projects after 5 or 10, maybe you should change the projects that you're doing. Anyway, we're going to stick on free because free is good. And let's create an app. We'll start with iOS. And what will we call this? We will call it com.co. There might be a Covacity, so we want to do example.covacity, and we will call it iOS. So if you think about it like a domain name, like in this case console.firebase.google.com, we're going in reverse. We're going com.example.covacity, and then we'll call this the iOS package. The other two things are optional. We will probably need to add it to the App Store at some point. I don't know how far we're going to get with this particular tutorial series, but for now we'll leave those blank. Click on Register App, and then we get to download something which allows the Flutter app to talk to Firebase, and we'll just download it. Pretty simple, right? And then what we do, what I've found anyway, the easiest way to do it is to use Xcode. You can't do that inside your main main editor. So why don't we do that? Why don't we do that right now? We'll flip over to the editor, and a little shortcut that it seems to have, which is you click on the iOS folder and you click on Open in Xcode. And here we have the iOS version of our Flutter app. Not much in here yet. And we go back to the instructions. So we need to put it into My Application and then Google that. So the application is called Runner on all Flutter projects. So what we're going to need to do is going to put it in the Runner subfolder. So Runner, Runner, and then Google Service Info. So I'll grab my Finder here, and let me organize this for a second. Sorry, people. Where did my Xcode go? There we go. Okay. So we'll take Google Service Info, and we will drag it into Runner. Copy items, you leave everything default, and finish. And that's all there is to Xcode. So we will exit out of this. And go next. And we will follow the additional instructions. So I'm going to go to CD to the iOS directory, do pod init. We will copy this. It's created a thing called pod file. We will add that, and we will do pod install. Okay, that's easy, right? Drop down to the terminal window, pod install. We will ignore all of that fun stuff. Back to next. Yeah, this is all fun stuff, isn't it? So we'll go back to the, where are we going? Sorry, people. I remember how this works. Honestly, I do. Not here, not here, not here, not here. Oh, sorry, we're in Runner. This is what we gotta do. So we go to the appdelegate.swift. Ignore these guys here. Just as a note, I've added a Git project, GitHub project for every single episode that we're doing here. So you'll see things are slightly different colors. Green means a new file, and yellow means something has changed in that particular directory. So we're back in Runner. We will go to the appdelegate.swift, and this is the file that they're talking about here. So we will import Firebase. And we will copy this line down here. So where does that go? Yeah, it's a little bit different, isn't it? Always a little bit different with this fun stuff. So Let's drop that in there. See how that does. We may have to make some changes later. Then we will continue to the console. So that part is done. A bit harder than you wanted it to be, but that's always the way things are when it comes to this stuff. All right, let's get out of this. Let's get out of this. We may, again, need to make some changes later on with the iOS. For some reason, Google Flutter doesn't seem to want to stay in sync with Google Firebase in terms of instructions. So it gets a bit frustrating at times, but that's just the joy of putting stuff together. So next, go to Android, and we'll build an Android app. So we click back over to here, add an app. Click on that. What do we call it again? example.covacity.android. Click on register app. Again, they give us a downloadable file. We will bring that in. And in this case, it's going to go into the Android app directory. So we've got Android and app, and pop over to our Finder or Explorer if you're on Windows. And here we go, Google Services. This one we can just drag over. It's a bit easier than doing the iOS version. And we grab the package name because we want that to match. Where is it? There's one place where you have to add it manually, if I remember correctly. Obviously, I don't remember it correctly. Here it is. Sorry, app, Android app build.gradle. We want this guy to match. So we'll drop that in there. And also while we're here, we're going to run into problems if we don't upgrade the minimum SDK version. So we're going to put that to 21, if I remember. And we'll continue with the instructions. Done this. Next. So go to the first build.gradle, which is the file we already have open. We will make sure we add the Google repo. If we find the correct, sorry, there's always two different build.gradles. So that's in the app directory. So first build.gradle is going to be Android and then build.gradle. So Android and build.gradle. Google's already in here, but we do have to make sure we have Google Services, which goes in the dependencies. And under all projects, I think Google is already in there, but let's just check. Yep, Google's here. And now we can move on to the second build.gradle file. We'll put some plugins here. So we go to the apply plugin. We've got com.android.application. We already have. We need Google Services. And this has changed since last time I did it. Under dependencies, I'll drop this in here. And I'll click on next. Continue to the console, and congratulations. Wasn't that fun, huh? We got some errors. That was from before. That was just warnings. Great. So that's that done. That's that done. And we've got Anything else? I see iOS in here. Oh, other platform. All right, that's another platform. So what are we going to do next? We have put the Android app together on the Firebase Firebase side. We've put the iOS app together in the Firebase side. So now we need to add stuff on the Flutter side. Let's close up these guys here. Oh, and one more thing I'm going to do, which you might think is stupid, but these kind of things bother me. I am going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it _unused platforms. Call it what you will. I'm going to grab the Mac OS directory. I'm going to drop that up there, and I'm going to grab the web directory, and I'm going to drop that up there. Why am I doing this? There is a command called flutter run, and you run it on all devices. But because now Flutter has added additional platforms which will run on, for example, in this case, Mac OS and web, if you run devices all, well, it'll try to run on that too, and we don't want that for this particular time. We can always bring these back at a later date, but for now, I'm just going to throw it up there so that Flutter, when it runs, doesn't see those platforms, and we can have a cleaner looking project. Where were we? Right. So the next thing we need to do is go to this file down here called pubspec.yaml. This is the control file for your entire project, which tells Flutter what extensions you're using, what files in terms of pictures or fonts. This thing is the control program, and you need it for everything, really. So first thing we're going to do, we'll clean it up a little bit just because I'm anal that way. You don't have to do this, of course, but it's just easier sometimes to have a nice clean file to work with. So let's get rid of all this stuff. We're going to call it Covacity. We're going to change it to a COVID-inspired capacity tracking app. We're not going to be publishing this as a package. And so here we have a nice clean file. When you want to add dependencies, or basically additional functionality, the best place to go is, or basically the only place to go, is a website called pub.dev. And here you search for what you want. In this case, we want Firebase, and I can't spell. There we go, it's helping me out. What you're going to need to run pretty much everything, you start with Firebase core. We click on this guy and it'll show us how to install it. It's actually very simple all the time. We grab Firebase core, current version. We will drop it under Cupertino icons, which we don't actually need. So yeah, let's get rid of that too. Now that gives us basic Firebase functionality, and we are going to need Cloud Firestore, which is the Firebase real-time, well, it's Firestore, as opposed to the real-time database, which is another real-time database, but it's not called real-time database, it's called Firestore, because you need two different things which almost do the same thing with a similar name. Again, apologies to whoever came up with these two different names, but all you really need to remember is that you are going to need Cloud Firestore. And we search for that. Again, click on the name, click on installing, grab the dependency, drop it in. Now, Visual Studio Code will automatically go out and grab these dependencies as soon as we save the file. So if you look down the bottom right, it's running this program called Flutter PubGet, and it brings in the files we need. And there you go. So after that particularly long episode, we have an Android app created at Firebase. We have a iOS app created at the same place. We have installed the packages that we need, and we have added the Android and iOS configurations to get things up and going. So in the next episode, we'll try to put it all together and see if we can make something happen. On to the next.